Now the next function we are going to discuss is total function. Total also works like count and average function. It will create a new column containing a sum of values within a window frame or within your partition. So again, suppose we have two different kinds of customers, C1 and C2. Now C1 and C2 are placing multiple orders at different dates. And we also have the order value with us. Now, if I want to calculate the total order value of C1 and C2 to be placed in front of each row, I can use the total function. For example, if C1 is ordering 3 times with the revenue of 100, 200 and 300, I want a total of 600 to be written in front of all the rows of C1. So on 1st of Jan 2022, 11th of May 2022 and 25th of August 2022, I want 600 written to be in front of each of this row. Similarly, C2 is placing order 4 times with value 300, 300, 200 and 400. The total is 1200. So I want 1200 to be written in front of each row of customer C2. Now how to do that? We can use the sum window function. We just have to write sum and in bracket we have to write on what column we want the sum to be calculated. So here we want the sum on revenue. So we have to write revenue. And again we have to write keyword of over and partition by. In partition by, we have to specify how to group our data for calculating this total. So here in this case, we are partitioning on customer. So we have to write customer. Now let's calculate the total of each state in front of each order ID. So I want a table which contains order IDs, date of that order, and then state from which that order was placed, and then another column of total value of orders from that state. So let's see how to do that. Now first let's see the order table. So I'll write total. You can ignore this. This is just the commenting part. So select star from sales. First let's understand this table. Here we have a unique key of order line, then we have order ID and then order date corresponding to that order ID. We also have customer ID corresponding to that order ID. We don't have the state data right now. And we also have the sales data here. So now first what we are going to do is we will roll up this data on order ID level. So currently order ID is not unique. There can be multiple rows of same order ID. This is happening because if the product ID is different, we are getting multiple lines of that order ID splitted according to the product ID. Since we only concerned with our revenue and customer data here, we will roll it up to order ID. So how to do that? Select order ID. Then we want a date. Date is unique to order ID. So it will always be same within each order ID. So we also want order date here. But since we will be grouping this data on order ID, we have to use a aggregate function on order date. So in such cases, you can just use max order function. It will do nothing. It will just get the maximum date out of this order ID. I will name it as order date only. I also want customer ID, and I also know that there is only one customer ID belonging to a order ID, there can't be multiple customer IDs for a same order ID. But again, since I'm grouping this data on order ID only, I have to use a aggregate function. Again, I will be using a max aggregate function. Max also works on a string type of data. It will give you one of the multiple values that you have for customer ID. I'm just using max of customer ID as customer ID. And then most importantly, we want the total sales. So we'll write sum of sales as revenue. Or as sales from sales table. Let's run this. We forget to add group by clause. Group by order ID. Let's run this. Now you can see that my data is rolled up to order ID level. I have the order ID and the sum of sales from that order ID. I also have order date and customer ID of that order. Now let's store this data into a table called as order rollup. Here we have the order ID, order date, customer ID and the total sales from that order. Let's create this. So we have created this order rollup. Now let's add the information of state in this order rollup table. So we'll write create table order rollup state as select. We'll put this order rollup table as our left table or A table and the customer table as our B table. We'll write A dot star comma B dot state from order rollup as A left join customer as B on A dot customer ID equal to B dot customer ID. Let's run this. You can see that our query is successful. Let's look at our order rollup state table. I will correct this name as well. Let's run this again. Yeah. Let's view the data. Select star from this. If I run this, you can see that now we have the state column as well in this data. Now, as I said, we wanted to have another column here which will contain the total sales value of this state. So how can we do that? We can select star comma, we'll write sum. This is our aggregate window function. Now we want the sum of sales. Sum of sales, we have to write over. Over is our keyword, then bracket start. Partition by is another keyword. Now here, since we want to calculate the sum of all the sales in a particular state. So here I will partition by state. Now we have to give alias. We want to save this column as sales state total from. We want this data from this table. Now let's run this. You can see that now we have the sales total of each state. For example, for Alabama, we have these many order IDs, and the total of sales from Alabama is this one, 31,038 units. Similarly, we have data of other states as well. So that's how we can use sum windows function in SQL. Now the next aggregate function is count function. As the name suggests, count will add a column with the number of rows within a window frame. For example, if we have customer and store and we want a new column which stores the information of how many customers each store have, then we can use count. It is very similar to average, just instead of calculating average, it is calculating the count of rows. So here in our data, we have 3 customers in store A. We have 4 customers in store B. So for all the customers who are from store A, we want 3. And for all the customers who are from store B, we want value as 4. So this is the final table we want. For C1, C5 and C7, we want value as 3, since there are 3 customers in store A. And for C2, C3, C4 and C6, we want the value as 4, since there are 4 customers from store B. Now let's go to our PG admin. So now let's create a column with a total number of customers from each state. So we want select customer ID, customer name, comma, state. Then we want the count of customer IDs in each state. So count is our function. In bracket, I have to write what I want to count. So here we are counting the customer IDs in each state. So we'll write customer ID. In this case, you can also write customer name instead of customer ID. It will give you the same result. Then we will write the over keyword, and in bracket we'll write partition by, and then we'll write state, since we want to partition our data and calculate count in each state. Then we can give alias, and we'll give an alias of count of customer, count cust. And we want this data from our customer order table that we created in our previous lectures. I think our query is ready. Let's just run this. You can see that from Alabama, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 customers. That's why in front of every customer who is from Alabama, we are getting 9. In Arizona, we have 21 customers. So for each customer, we are getting 21 in this column. In California, we have around 161 customers. Similarly, in Michigan, we have 16. So all the customers who are from Michigan have 16 value in this column. So that's how we use count window function. In the next lecture, we'll see how to calculate sum or total. In our last few lectures, we have discussed rank functions and antile function. Now let's move on to discuss some aggregate windows function. So the first function we are going to discuss is average function. We have already seen average in our aggregate functions when we were using group by. We can use the average function with windows function as well. So for example, we are using the same data. We have customer, store and revenue. Now suppose in front of each one of these rows, I want the average revenue of that store. For example, there are 3 customers from store A, that is C1, C5 and C7 with revenue 100, 200 and 300. So the average for store A is 100 plus 200 plus 300 divided by 3. That comes out to be 200. So the average of store A is 200. So I want the average value of 200 to be in front of each one of these customers, C1, C5 and C7. Similarly, I want the average value of store B in front of each customer who are purchasing from store B. So I want a final table something like this. So for store A, the revenues are 100, 200, 300. So the average revenue should be 200, 200, 200. Similarly, for store B customers, the values are 300, 300, 200 and 400. If you add all this and divide it by 4, the average comes out to be 300. So I want 300 in front of each customer from store B. This is the final table we want. We can get this table from using average windows function. And how can we do that? The syntax is average. Then you have to mention the field for which you want the average. Then again, just like any other window function, we have to use partition by and order by. Here, order by is not required because there is no use of order. So in partition by, you have to select the groups on which you want the average to be calculated. So again, only 2 columns are required. First column is on which you want to calculate the average value, and second column, which we are going to use in partition by, which is the group in which you want to calculate the average value. So now let's calculate the average of revenue of each state in our database. Let's look at our table, customer underscore order, that we created in our previous lectures. So we have customer ID, customer name, state, and we also have sales total. Now let's calculate the average sales of each state. Now, how can we do that? We'll write select, let's add customer ID, customer name, then let's add state, let's add the total revenue or total sales. So sales total, we will name it as revenue, and then let's calculate the average in each state. So we'll write average. We want the average of this sales total. So we'll just write average of total. We'll write over. In the bracket, we'll write partition by. We want to partition it on the column of state. So state, let's save it as average revenue. So we are getting 5 columns: customer ID, customer name, state, revenue of that particular customer, and the average revenue of the whole state in which that customer belongs from customer underscore order. Let's run this. You can see that we are getting this result. We have customer ID, customer name, state, revenue of each customer, and then we have the average revenue of the entire state. So for the state of Alabama, the average is this. Similarly, for state of Arizona, the revenue is this. So one use case of calculating average can be, so suppose if you want to create a list of customers whose revenue is less than the average revenue of their state. So suppose if some stores want to target customers who are buying less from their store, so how can they calculate the customers who are purchasing less than the other customers? So we are commenting it, and if we want to select, we can just put this in bracket. We can select star from this table where revenue is less than average revenue. We have to write A dot average revenue is less than A dot revenue is less than A dot average revenue, since we are using A as alias for this entire table. Now if I run this, you can see that we are only getting the customers who are buying less than the other customers. So this is the use case of average window function. In the next lectures, we will discuss count and sum functions as well. Thank you.